We need some time out to really think about what just took place, to think about the consequences of all our actions.
The initial reaction to the riots was widespread anger and condemnation. Across the country, there was an urgent need to find those responsible and punish them. This widespread condemnation rapidly became focused on young people, especially by the media.
The media coverage of the riots has been one of the saddest episodes I've witnessed as a politician. The lack of understanding that I've seen by mainstream journalists has been frankly appalling. It's a disgrace.
Tottenham was kind of typecast and painted as this despicable, thug-like area.
I think words like chavs and hoodies are used by the media and in collusion with the government to demonise pretty much an entire young generation. David Cameron, as I say, used the phrase feral thugs. It's about dehumanising young people, removing their difference and the variety within those different groups and removing their humanity. And once you do that, you don't have to understand them because, hey, they're lesser than us. So you know, why should we bother to understand what their thoughts, feelings and motives are?
The mass media, for the mass market, that's exactly what it's designed for. And what they're doing, as they did in the 80s, is they're whipping up hysteria. And that then gives government the power and the nod to go in hard on young people. Initial media reports led the public to believe that the majority of rioters were young people. Of those charged by police and brought to court, 26% were aged 10 to 17, 27% aged 18 to 20, 42% were aged between 21 and 39, and 5% were over 40. This was followed up by the judicial system clamping down hard and handing out tough sentences. Many people who appeared before the courts were sent straight to prison.
Once again, it seemed to me there must have been a directive from either the Home Office or the Lord Chancellor or some source behind the scenes saying, and it's the old story, I've heard it so many times, deterrence. You know, it's the big stick approach, which is, you know, prison is the deterrent. So we'll start off with really heavy sentences and this will shake them up. 4 years, 5 years. I've never thought prison is a deterrent. You only really lock people up if they're going to commit the same offence again and they're a risk to themselves and the community. But I don't think most of the young people in this category fall into that.
When we're looking at the public interest to prosecute, you have to look at the context of a crime and take into account the aggravating features and the mitigating features. These were very serious crimes. They were widespread crimes. They took place over a long period of time, and they took place when communities were in a very vulnerable position. So those are factors that make the crimes more serious, and those are things we would have taken into account when we were deciding whether to prosecute.
Although there are clearly a significant amount of adults involved in the riots, over 50% of people brought to the courts were aged between 10 and 20. We can't ignore this fact, so we have to ask, why were there such a large number of young people involved? What has led to so many young people taking to the streets to steal and cause mass damage and destruction?
The underlying causes behind the riots are complex and cannot be
people tell me from across the boroughs is that there seems
to me, I find it heartbreaking that young people feel the need to.
So this is the first coalition summer, and we have riots. Now,
well, we know that there were something like 3,500 crimes reported to police in London during that time.
I mean, there are some pretty pertinent statistics which I think the government is ignoring.
The impact of the riots was pure criminality. That was people taking advantage.
Those who say to me that they were protesting because...
Think about it, police were helpless. They weren't really
But as communities, we bear responsibility.
It is how you treat each other.
The one where you're writing for a reason, you're not really looting for a reason. Like there's no national
demonstration was the best way of communicating.
They don't feel like
people just get too much influence off celebrities, media.
Enough is enough.
Everyone seems to have their own opinions and theories about the riots of August 2011. The issues within our society are definitely deep and complex, so in our search for solutions, we felt it was vital to have a deeper conversation about some of the major issues within our society.
Education in the first place, and if you do get the money together to get an education and get in debt for the rest of your life in order to get an education for that job that should be there ain't no job there.
You know what I'm saying? There's bad points and bad viewpoints in every side. The police, politicians and the youths and people that are not doing anything and just watching it on TV.
If they're rebelling against the police, why are they setting fire to shops?
When whatever happened in Tottenham, what happened? Where were all the police?
I keep on hearing the Prime Minister talking about actions have consequences. He needs to realise that his actions has consequences, and these are the consequences of his actions. Would this help us to gain an understanding about some of the possible motivations for the riots? And could it also provide us with some clues as to how they could be prevented from ever happening again?
Let Mark Duggan be the last. Let Mark Duggan be the last. We got no more children to give to you. We got no more sacrifices to make.
A major issue that has come up over and over again is the relationship between police and communities across Britain. Deaths in police custody represent one of the most contentious issues. How do these incidents affect our communities?
Tottenham has a history of deaths in police custody, and I'm thinking of Joy Gardner, Cynthia Jarrett, Roger Sylvester, and now Mark Duggan. And it is the case that we have had riots in the past because of these deaths.
We have got to stay together and we've got to keep strong, because this impact, I know, can tear families apart, and because of being so high profile, it's going to drag on and on and on, and that's going to be hard for us.
When they turn up and come back and says, yeah, we find these 4 policemen not guilty. How is it going to go? We're going to load down our heads and just carry on walking down. We're not having that this time.
I think what's very alarming, and what does add to the lack of community confidence in the whole police complaint system, is the fact that despite 10 unlawful killing verdicts, and what I mean by that is juries at inquests have decided beyond reasonable doubt that excessive or unlawful force has been used, and yet there has never been a successful prosecution of any police officer. You see time and again deaths occurring where there is clear evidence of excessive or unlawful use of force, or even in cases where people have not received the proper treatment and care that was owed to them, and you see no criminal charges or disciplinary charges being brought against the individuals responsible. And I think that sends out a very clear message that somehow the police are above the law, but that the lives of those who've died are meaningless.
If they can do that to Mark, they can do that to anybody. And I can understand the fear of a lot of, because I speak to Mark's friends, Marlon's friends, the fear, that black boys, mixed race boys have of the police. It's a case, I don't know, it seems like a them and us kind of war.
As the figures demonstrate, it's not the fact that more people from BME communities die in police custody or following police contact, it's the circumstances in which they die. And they are much more likely to be disproportionately represented in deaths in contentious circumstances, and in particular deaths following the use of force.